Line here, Rick. You guys hear us okay? Yep, okay, good. All right, we'll call the meeting to order. We are missing Walt, so Jason, you're gonna be seated for Walt tonight. Okay. All right, so next is any additions, changes to agenda. So Mary Kay sent out an email. This is my fault. We had everything in the packet generally, but it wasn't as detailed on the agenda. So you'll see that there's a 4/13/26 meeting update to agenda item 6.1 under new business. So essentially, it just gets into more detail on what we would already have been talking about. So we're just going to amend, or I'll make a motion in a second, but the details of the changes under 6.1 would be set a revised section 7.1 setbacks, add section 71.6, 7.7 height, area, and yard requirements. 9.0 structure definition, 71 Board of Appeals, with 71.4, 71.4.1, 52 special permit applications, and we'll talk about 52.2.E and 52.4.B. And then this is one thing that wasn't in there, is 21.5 agriculture. We'll talk about 21.5.1, 21.5.2. And then also 8.3 accessory dwelling unit and two family dwellings. We'll talk about some of that. 8.3.3, and then we also had the elimination of section 8.14 accessory structures in residential districts. So I'm going to make a motion to change the agenda to the items under the 4/13/26 meeting update to agenda item 6.1. Do we have a second?
I'll second
And Dave seconds. Is there any discussion on the motion?
I have a question. From a legal standpoint, there are a few sections in here that have been added that were not advertised for this meeting. So I'm not sure we can discuss those, or we can discuss them, but I don't think we can vote on them.
I believe we can, because it's not a public hearing. Does anybody else have any? John, do you know any details on that?
On the bylaws?
No, on the additions to the agenda. There was a question as to, we can discuss some of the added piece, so we added 21.5, the agricultural discussion, because that was not on the agenda. Bob is concerned that we can discuss it, but we can't vote on it, and I believe that only matters on public hearing.
Well,
right?
this is all just for a receipt of application and of the proposed changes and scheduling of a public hearing. I don't think, and this is a regular meeting, you can adjust your agenda as needed. I don't think there's any reason to hold off on voting, because the only vote would be to schedule a hearing.
Yeah, this isn't a public hearing, this is a regular meeting.
I'm not sure, but what's the concern?
The concern is that the items that are being added to the agenda were not publicly advertised in sufficient length. No,
well, it's not, again, it's not a public hearing. It's not a public hearing. It's not a public hearing. Right. And
people who may be interested in these items would not know of these items being discussed because they weren't publicly advertised.
Which is true. However, there is not generally, well, I mean, if you choose to receive these for public hearing, they will be publicly advertised. That is the procedure. Just because I don't know, but you can object. There is no procedural problem with it. I will say that.
I'm not objecting. I'm just asking the question.
Yeah.
I don't believe there's a legal reason that we can't change the agenda, because we can change the agenda up until the point of the meeting unless we're involved in a public hearing. So the public, if we were to move these to public hearing, what's that?
I'm sorry. I know just the one thing I would note, and I'm sorry I missed this when we reviewed the agenda. This is listed under item 5 as continuation of public hearing. That's not how it should be listed. It really should be listed as new business.
Yeah, it's under new business. So item 6, discuss and or receive and schedule a public hearing.
Oh, geez, you know what? I'm sorry, Mary. This is strange. The agenda on the website actually when you click the agenda for April 13th, 2026, you actually get the agenda for Monday, April 14th, 2025. I'm looking at last year's agenda that I was on the website. Sorry, my apologies. I was looking at literally last year's agenda. Let me see.
So yeah, so these items would be under discuss and or receive on scheduled public hearing for under new business. So that being said, with the addition of the detail and of 21.5 to the new business, John, is there any concern that we cannot proceed tonight with
No.
discussions on those?
I have no concerns about that.
Okay. Is there any other discussion on the motion? Okay, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye or raising your hand. Opposed? And abstentions? Okay, thank you. All right, Mary Kay or John, do you know of any other additional changes to the agenda? No?
No.
Okay. All right, so let's move to approval of PZC regular meeting minutes, March 9th, 2026. Does anyone have any comments or discussion on the previous meeting minutes? No.
I just have a quick question. It's for John. John, I still have not heard from the CROG folks. You said that you would put in touch with me. I haven't heard anything, so I don't want
Oh, huh.
to miss another meeting.
Yeah. Okay. After the last meeting when you were appointed, I followed up with an email. Did you get that?
I don't think so, no.
Huh. All right.
No, I haven't gotten an email from you. I haven't had them from you.
This would have been, yeah, after our meeting, I would have sent an email to, and I'll have to check my sent items, to Krog, copying you, indicating that you are the new representative for the Regional Planning Commission. I will follow up on that, and I apologize if you weren't looped in. Huh. Okay. Yeah, no, apologies. I'll send another email about it.
Thank you.
Any other comment or discussion on the meeting minutes from March 9th?
So make a motion to accept.
Okay, second. I'll second. All those in favor? Opposed? And abstentions? Jason abstains. Thank you. Okay, item 5, unfinished business. So this is for the 2026 Plan of Conservation and Development. We already have the public hearing scheduled for Tuesday, May 26th, 2026. We don't need to really have any discussion around this unless somebody wants to talk about that item specifically. John, is there anything on the POCD side that you want to bring up at all?
Nope. I've been getting some input and some, people catching typos and that sort of thing. I see Ann Dunnick in the room, so I would like to note formally that Ann, I received your email, and we will look at those changes.
Thank you.
But yeah, no, we're receiving comments as we go.
All right, sure. Yeah.
Hi, John. I had a question for the last meeting about the format of the report. And
What report?
The physical format, the last one that was done, I don't know if you can see this, but it was 8.5 by 11 format. Which is good because it fits on a typical bookshelf. Anything larger than this becomes awkward. You end up folding it, which is awkward as well. But I don't know if you had thought about a different format or you were going to continue with the one that we had in 2016.
We are almost certainly going to do it as an 8.5 by 11, but landscape oriented. Mostly because we believe that the way that 90% or more people will be interfacing with the plan will be on a computer screen, which is generally also landscape oriented. I don't love that format. Landscape is as a physical document as much, but I think it makes more sense based on how we use these lately. But it'll be 8.5 by 11.
So it'll be bound on the left-hand side.
Yes, I believe so.
So you can print on both sides then.
Yeah. Oh yeah. No, it'll be yeah.
Okay.
Probably yeah.
Good.
Printed on
Thank
both
you.
sides. Mm-hmm.
All right. Any other discussion on the POCD? Okay. All right, we're gonna move on to new business, discuss and or receive and schedule a public hearing for the following items. So let me just kind of lay out some ideas here. If you look on one of your printouts that Mary Kay provided for us, it's the Town of Columbia Planning and Zoning Commission Regulation Subcommittee proposed amendments, April 2026 commission meeting. So this is a good opportunity because we haven't had a lot of big business in front of the commission at all, up until May 26th when we go over the VOCD public hearing. So instead of canceling meetings, I wanted to take the time to go over what has come out of the subcommittee so far. We met twice after our last commission meeting where we discussed these. I called it a little earlier meeting last week just to kind of go over the last red lines that came from John and from the previous meeting. So I'm gonna go through these just kind of one by one each section. So if it's okay with the commission, if you don't mind, if I can just get through kind of each section and we'll explain a little bit of what the proposed changes are. There's some things that are gonna look familiar from the last time we talked, and then some things that have been modified a little bit, and then we got some new information from Savannah. So there's some stuff on the accessory dwelling units.
Question,
that's on top, yeah.
if we have questions, do we ask them when you're discussing it or at the end?
If you could just wait until I just get through the section, that would be perfect.
And
And
Justin,
anybody from the subcommittee, feel free to chime in.
do you want me to put it up on the, you want me to put up the changes on the screen?
Yeah, if you like, yeah, that'd be great, appreciate it. So if you go through the packet, the first one is 7.1, there's setbacks, we can talk about this first page. So on the bottom, you'll see 7.1.6. These are the contextual setback language that we put in the regulations. So essentially, the front setback for primary residential structures may be reduced at the request of the applicant and subject to approval by the commission or its designee to a distance that is within 10% of the contextual standard of the neighborhood, determined by the average front setback of other primary residential structures with 1,500 feet on either side of the property, but no closer than the closest of these structures. So essentially what that means, you have a older neighborhood, you've got 6 houses in a row and they're all averaging 30 feet from the road for road frontage, and someone's building a new home, putting a new structure up, instead of having to abide by the 50 feet setback as currently is mandated. They can have this contextual setback where they can take the average of the neighborhood and then put that building or that house more in line with what's already there, so it doesn't look out of place. And that would be obviously by approval, the commission or the designee. So that's some proposed added language. Does anyone have any questions or comments on that?
I don't have any questions on that, but I do have a question on 7.1.2. Does that change to lake properties also?
Additional setbacks, and though that hasn't changed, of course, we're building structure.
Yeah.
Yeah, it would be all zones, right?
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Okay, any other questions on that one? Okay, so the next is 7.7. You'll see the table that includes residential agricultural zone, CM1, CM2, MU. And then this goes over frontage lots is that top chart. And then on the bottom, which is what spurred the discussion from several people in town, was rear lots. So this specifically talks about some adjustments possible to setbacks. So as it's designated now, and again, these are just proposals, so nothing has changed. So as it is now, for a rear lot, we are requiring minimum front, rear and side yard setbacks at 50 feet. Whereas on frontage lots, for side yard setbacks, we're currently requiring 25 feet. So the questions that were brought to some of us, one person who came to the subcommittee meeting, and there's probably at least 2 other people that have reached out to me directly, was to make it a little bit more fair and even and allow for kind of normal setbacks in rear lots. So the change, if we start with the bottom portion first, is from 50 to 25 feet for rear yard setbacks and side yard setbacks instead of 50 for rear lots. And then as we discussed this in the subcommittee, the minimum rear yard setbacks on frontage lots is currently designated at 50 feet. And in discussing this, kind of why is it 50 feet versus 25 feet? you know, what does this actually mean? What is the danger in changing it versus what is the rationale of keeping it the same? There really wasn't a good answer. So we are currently proposing for the rear yard setbacks on a frontage lot in the RA zone to change that from 50 to 25 feet. If you go to the bottom, you'll see the first one, it says see section 7.1.6, that's just referring to the contextual setbacks. So that's just what we talked about before. But on the bottom, we want to add a little bit more clarifying language. If we were to change these setbacks, it says on lots within the Columbia Lake watershed, watershed overlay, rear yard shall be a minimum of 50 feet unless modified by section 10.4. So the lake overlay would still remain, the rear yard setback would remain 50 feet if there's any interference with the lake or any other properties. Okay, so that's for that page. Is there any questions, comments, or concerns?
What were the original values? Like, I actually went to my copy to look at the original
This
table.
table was the new.
Yeah, it's missing from our package, it looks like. Should be enough.
That's not, it's not.
Yeah, there's some other pages missing too, I believe. For instance, page 11 stars.
Contents isn't accurate, if we use a lot to find it.
No,
Oh,
it goes from 7.6 to 8.1.
There's no back to your.
No,
These are just the sections subject to change.
no, this is the packets we.
They weren't all printed out or cited, I apologize. That's why. Oh, there's supposed to be two.
We've got it on the page, it's all the numbers, they're all on pages.
Yeah.
In,
So we should roll copy. I have it since I, okay, I'm here.
We really,
oh, we look at the regulations.
Justin, the only change is to, Justin,
Hold on 1 second, sorry, just 1 second.
Oh, yeah, that's me.
not really saying that.
I'll be all. All
Okay, so,
There's one here.
alright, Bob, what was that?
Did you three hold punch those too?
Sure.
Cause
Yep.
in the old days, they used to hand these things out.
We'll take care of that. So the original values. Sorry, they're not in here. So for the RA, the change to 25 for minimum rear yard, it is currently 50. And then the two changes for rear yard and side yard setbacks for rear lots are also 50. So, all right, any comments or questions? No?
No, just a minute, explain to me the rationale for the double asterisks
So
about
in the lake overlay to basically keep the same rear setbacks. If it was, you know, up against the lake to keep the minimum distance 50 feet, if there's a concern with that, because, you know, there's the congestion around the lake. John, is there any other comments that you want to bring up around the double asterisk portion?
No, that was, it was just, you know, it was noted that the lake being the sensitive resource and for the most part houses are in the first ring of lake area, which is the watershed A overlay. The front yard is, you know, towards the street and the rear yard is toward the lake. And so we would like to maintain a strong buffer from structures to the lake. So that's why the rear yard in Lake A is retained at 50 feet.
I think that's also consistent with the inland wetlands requirement.
Then the wetlands is 100 foot
Oh,
up.
it's 100.
Up, you could build closer technically if you got approval.
Okay, so the lake over zone A is actually not just waterfront property, it's waterfront
No.
property is 176 lots. The lake overlay zone is 420 lots. The problem nobody's gonna be able to do this in Lake Zone A because the largest lot right now is 10,000 square feet. And how do you figure that? Well, it was provided by the zoning enforcement officer in 2012.
Wait, the biggest lot,
The largest lot maximum square footage lot on Lake Over Zone A is 10,218 feet.
But we know that is not good, true, that's my own house.
Yeah,
I have 40,000 square feet.
Okay,
that's from 2012. Well, do we?
I don't think lots have been combined since then, have they?
Some have,
Some have.
Oh, okay, that may be it then.
no, but I mean, they were bigger than that already. Ones that I'm thinking,
This is not correct information then.
no.
Interesting. Okay.
If it's
No,
useful,
I
if
concur. I
it's
think that-
useful, I can bring up the map, our GIS map of the lake that shows a number of parcels that are there clearly larger.
No, that's all right. I think it's good to leave it at 50 is what I'm saying. I just wanted to understand, why we're keeping it low and make sure everyone's on the same page of why we are keeping it that way.
Sure.
The minimum side yard is going to be changed to 25.
For the rear lots, for that's what we're proposing, yeah.
Okay, so there should be a double asterisk there as well.
No, because the only thing that's pointing to is rear yard setbacks in Lake Zone A, not side yard setbacks.
So how the only people that's really, I mean, obviously it doesn't affect someone who already has a house on the lake. What it would affect is anyone who wants to tear down a house and rebuild, is that correct?
It could be grandfathered.
Could be, yeah, but I mean, is this allowed?
They keep the same footprint.
I think that's allowed already if you keep the same footprint, right? Yeah, so.
I think it may be allowed if you keep the same envelope.
Yeah, you likely still have to go to CBA,
Right.
but it's case by case. This doesn't change anything for houses in Lake Zone A on the lake, so it would stay the same. It would change everywhere else, the rear yard would go to 25 feet.
Alright, any other comments? Okay, next page, 8.14. I'm still proposing to remove this section. Accessory structures in residence districts. Accessory structures shall not be located on any lot unless the zoning enforcement officer, after receipt and review of an application for zoning compliance and any additional documentation or information that she shall deem necessary, has determined that the accessory structure will not create a negative impact on the neighborhood character in such a way as to present an unsightly appearance when viewed from the adjacent roads or properties. For example, it is preferable that accessory structures be kept in the rear or side yard and screened by landscaping or fencing in a manner which is in harmony with the principal structure and the neighborhood. We're proposing to remove this section. It's legally indefensible. It's way too subjective. And I think, as importantly, Savannah had concerns about it as well, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Just the discretion left up to me. I didn't feel that I should speak on behalf of the commissions.
I think this gets, personally, I think it gets too far into the what one person's opinion on was beautiful and versus somebody else.
Exactly.
So,
Because Savannah might not always be in that chair.
well, and
Yeah, somebody else. Yeah, no, I'm sad.
It's fun.
Yeah,
Yeah,
nobody can even-
nice.
I'll make it even worse. Some people don't like my judgment. You don't want me using that as an enforcement mechanism. So, is there any conversation or questions on that?
I guess the only comment I would make is you always have to protect yourself against the unintended consequences. And how do we protect this situation from, you have a neighborhood of, let's pick a neighborhood, Heritage Drive, all of a sudden somebody sticks a accessory dwelling in the front yard 50 feet from the road.
Well, I mean, if it, in that example, they're still having to work through the regulations and what's required and allowed within the regulations. And then you have the whole catch-all of blight as well. Like, this has nothing to do with the blight ordinance, which is a separate ordinance.
But is there anything that we've written that would encourage people to put it in the side yard or the rear yard? The accessory dwelling?
I don't.
Not that I
Okay,
can
so-
think of. I've been through those regs a lot lately. I haven't seen
Anything. Yeah, I don't want discount concern, but.
Yeah, no, but I'm just thinking, again, we're just trying to make sure we don't go back can of worms.
Okay. All right, any other comments? All right, Section 9 definition. So this is very simple. We got a complaint in town. Someone put a playscape up, a swing set, and someone complained about it because they weren't sure whether they had gotten their zoning permit for it. And the way that our regulations are written, if it's not explicitly enumerated, then it's not allowed. So when we start talking about definitions, we need to continuously enumerate things. So we are proposing to add, as far as exemptions to what a structure is, what would need a permit. We're proposing to add the verbiage residential playscapes, flagpoles, mailboxes, and similar accessory, Jason, you're smiling, appurtenances. I don't even know if I said it right. Did I? Awesome. Okay, any concerns or questions about that?
Are we at all concerned that that's open to interpretation as well?
How so?
So it is.
Anything that isn't a structure, you could potentially call a similar accessory appurtenance because there's no commonalities to these items other than they're bigger than a bread box, but well, I can't actually think of anything that should be called out on here as not one of these items that's similar to these items, but something could come up. And by putting that there, someone can come in and say, well, this is a similar accessory appurtenance, even if we might disagree with that.
Yeah, so there's two ways of looking at it. I don't disagree with that concern. Could it be taken advantage of? Yes. Could it get in front of Savannah or whoever the CEO is, and there would have to be determination of that using some level of subjectiveness? Yes. Does this, on the other hand, balance it out perhaps a little bit and give people a little bit more flexibility to do things and put something in that isn't harmful, doesn't create any problems, but isn't specifically enumerated? That's the flip side of it. So I think it's whatever we decide balances that out. At least that's my viewpoint of it.
Term I've seen in the regs a couple times, which would be a consideration to add, is maybe after the comma with commission approval, which would send the CEO back to the commission to check. Just a thought.
Any other comments?
Yeah, that's good.
Oh. Okay, next page. Typo on the top to ensure from insurer, so that just changed. So this is about notifications. Now, this is for basically ZBA appeals. The way that I understand this, and Savannah and John jump in, is that this was almost something that was a typo that got into the regulations because we put a basically a 500-foot notification for a zoning board of appeals process. And everything else in the regulations says 200, like it should be 200, but this has 500 listed, right? Is that essentially?
Yes,
Okay.
with the addition of it was actually approved in a year. Mary came in, I don't know the exact year, but it's been, it was a few years back. A few years back, it was approved by the commission.
Okay.
But it was never carried through, which was kind of clear.
Okay, so there's a discrepancy between the process and what's in the regulations essentially. Okay, now that's for some other conversations as well. So we did put some more clarifying language down below, but essentially in 71.4.1, the applicant shall notify by certificate of mailing. So we took out certified mail, and then changed the 500 feet to 200 feet. Now, there's also concerns about notifications, on residential or commercial zones that butt up against residential zones. So we did add some language in 52.2 section E. At the end of that, if the application concerns activity on a commercially zoned property that immediately abuts the residential zone, the list must include properties within 500 feet of the applicant's property. So that hopefully gives a little bit more security to the folks living in any of those sections of the RA zone. So is there any questions on that page?
Yeah, one suggestion here. I suggest we also use commercial use property. So whether or not it's zoned commercially, if it's a commercial use, let's say it's a grandfathered non-conforming use, I would want to be able to bring that within the same notice.
Okay. Good suggestion.
So,
What is-
just to play, if I might, Mr. Chair,
Yeah, right.
just to play that out, Rick, if it's non-conforming, I'm not sure what the application would be, because you can't expand a non-conformity without a variance.
Well, if it's adjacent to a non-conforming. I think what Rick meant is if it's adjacent to a non-conforming commercial lot.
I think Rick was talking about a commercial use in a residential zone.
Rick, you want to clarify?
Yeah, what I'm saying is, it would be a catch-all and may never apply, but just because of a property, we do have a lot of commercial uses potentially that are not in the commercial zone.
Mm-hmm.
It could be a home business, for example, that we want to have some sort of control over if it's an expansive home business. So what I'm just saying is, in addition to the application concerns an activity in a commercially zoned area, if it's a current commercial use, without regard to the zone, that have the same level of notification.
John, can you think of any reason, I'm just playing devil's advocate, I understand what Rick's saying, I'm not opposed to it, but is there any practical reason that would be not workable or create an issue?
That would be up to us as a commission to determine.
Well, I just want John's.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think it's really, and I don't know if I want to get into the sort of the philosophical niceties of it at this point. I think it may be more suitable for the public hearing itself. But again, I'm trying to think the circumstances. So if it's a pure commercial use, if it's whatever, a Dunkin' Donuts that happens to be in a residential zone, that's non-conforming, it wouldn't be allowed to expand without a variance. So that sort of takes it out of planning and zoning to a certain extent. If it was a home occupation, home occupations are allowable in residential areas under the standard. I think we have a three phase thing, and so the third phase, tier 3 home occupation would require a special permit, would require a public hearing, and I guess the question there is that because it's in a residential neighborhood, is that sensitive enough that you want to go to 500? I think there's an argument to be made there. Yeah, I think Rick has an argument. I think I don't know that I totally agree with the necessity, but number one, it's not the public hearing, and number two, I don't get a vote. So,
yep. And I don't think we should always assume that a variance might be necessary. If it's a not as non-conforming use, but still a commercial use.
Yeah, no, I see your point, Rick. I don't disagree with it. I don't think that's a bad suggestion. So why don't we add that to the language, and then obviously, yeah, if we vote to put this to public hearing, there'll be more input, and it's not like the end of the process is tonight. So
It would be nice to get this as tight as we wanted, so that there's not a lot of added things in the public hearing.
Yeah.
Because then it gets out of control.
yeah, no problem.
Get too many people wordsmithing.
So we'll put some kitchen.
You got it. Question for you. What is a certificate of mailing?
So John, can you explain the certificate of mailing, please?
sure. So okay, so certified mail, which is what we'd be proposing to remove, and let me move back up to that section again. Certified mail is the traditional green cards that require return receipt, and the recipient has to sign for it. Those are a little bit cumbersome, and they've gotten very expensive. They're now $12 or $13 a piece. And so if you live in like a lake district where it's very dense, and you have 12 or 13 bucks a piece and a 500-foot radius, you're potentially talking thousands of dollars of mailing fees. A certificate of mailing is a different postal service offering, wherein it's a small white card that each recipient has a separate white card, that the post office stamps and basically promises and, swears on a stack of Bibles that they will deliver it. And you have basically a receipt that says you mailed this letter and we will deliver it. It's no return receipt. There's no green card involved, but it is the post office saying this will be delivered. We promise. And those are much less expensive. They're, $1.35, $1.50 per. So it's generally the best practice around municipal notifications now, that it's appropriate to use certificate of mailing in lieu of certified mail. So that's the difference.
I guess the only concern I have is we're relying on the post office to guarantee that this card has been delivered. My experience in the last 4 months is that I've lost 5 pieces of mail that were not forwarded by the Columbia Post Office. I know specifically that they were mailed, they went to my home address here. I had all my mail forwarded for the winter, and 5 pieces of mail were not forwarded by this post office.
Okay,
And one of them was forwarded a month after they had received it.
okay.
So I think this may be the accepted way of doing things these days, but not to throw any disparaging remarks on the Columbia Post Office system, but I think it's a weak link. We're not guaranteeing. I don't think there's a guarantee that everything's gonna be delivered, is what I'm saying.
Okay, so,
Certified mail, recipient has to sign for it. That's where the green cards come in. So you know for a fact that the intended recipient has received the notification.
if we have problems with the local postal service, we can't really address that through the regulations. You could potentially have an issue with anything that they handle at that point, then,
Oh,
correct?
I know, but if it's certified mail, you know if it's been delivered or not, because the recipient signs for it. The post office doesn't have anything, the other one is the post office guaranteeing it's gonna be mailed.
Okay.
The certified mail means that the recipient has to sign for it, that they have received it. So it's guaranteeing that it's been delivered.
Okay. So my personal opinion is I would rather err on side of if there's a large price difference and it makes the applicants like a little bit easier. I don't know that we can address issues with the postal service around it. I understand what you're saying, but there's always the potential of an issue. I think we have to go by what's most common use and is most fair for everyone. I mean, that's just my opinion. Does anybody else have any other comments on it?
I think Bob has a good point.
Okay, so,
I guess we'll find out when the first thing happens and somebody comes in and says, I was never notified.
Mhm.
That's assuming that they find out somehow,
mhm,
but. The constant problem we have with citizens is they feel that they're never notified about what's going on with planning and zoning.
mhm.
Even though we publish agendas, these are public meetings, they're on the webpage, you can look at them later, they're recorded. People still come in when we're trying to make changes to regulations and say, I was never notified.
It is a protection for us.
It's a universal challenge.
Well, then it falls back on the post office, they better.
Yeah, and I guess that's my,
I understand your point, but I mean, either of those things could get lost and then we'd have to, if it was certified mail, we'd have to resend it, correct? And hope that it would get there before. Hope that it would get there before the public hearing actually went down.
Yeah, I'm not sure when you send them out, 30 or 60 days ahead of time?
Yeah, 30 days.
30
And
days.
so we have to complete that whole loop before, but either one of those things could get lost, right? Certified mail or a certificate of mailing.
Yes,
I
yes, they
understand,
could.
and I understand what you're saying.
I'm trying to minimize the damage,
Okay,
trying to help people, make sure everyone's notified in a sufficient timeframe.
If it was undeliverable, the green card would still come back with attempts made and dates of attempts made, which you could show the resident saying attempts were
Okay.
made.
okay,
So
so
that
it was
was just gets mailed.
That would be the green card. That's the receipt certificate. Yes, signature receipt required. It is a protection for the board
okay. Well,
that people can't come and complain.
we'll check with, yeah, it's
Remember, we're reducing the distance from 500 feet to 200 feet.
no, well,
That's what it says here,
it's a,
adjacent owners, right? So
no,
that's
the
gonna,
adjacent owners is moving to it's adding language to 500 feet for adjacent owners who have property adjacent to a commercial zone. Or
I'm sorry, on the next page.
That's, we have commercial
Yeah, I'm
residential,
sorry, I'm on the next page.
but if you
Well,
have
it's
residential, you have 200 feet.
Is anyone else concerned? So here's what it comes down to. There's a million things that can happen that prevent someone from getting notified. We know, everyone in this room knows the challenge that Bob articulated, that in everything we do, we have a problem with people staying involved and knowing what's going on. When it's advertised, it's on the website, we go through the extra steps of mailings. So I don't necessarily agree that we shouldn't change it because of that, because I think then we're trying to compensate for a possible future mishap that takes place with the postal service, which we can't regulate, we can't do that, you know.
No, we can make our best effort to enable people to know what's going on.
Okay.
I think the people that are most affected by this, Bob, and I was talking about my mother, the same thing, she runs into the same thing with her when she's back and forth to Florida. I think that's the majority of the problem, is people who have their mail forwarded and then, you know, back and forth, so I can, you know.
Is that what it specifically was when you were in Florida? I mean, it forwarded.
Yeah.
So it wasn't in town. If you were in town, you would have gotten it.
Yes,
Okay.
well, as soon as it delivers it.
Yes, presumably.
Yeah,
Right.
I had problems with forwarding.
Okay, all right.
And others have too.
Okay.
Okay, yeah.
But I'm using that as an example, Justin. I mean,
I got it.
And the thing I'm looking at also is the same language is being used in 71.4.1.
Okay. Exactly, yeah.
And if that's only reduced to 200 feet, how many people do you have to notify? I mean, most of the lots have at least 100-foot frontage. So maybe you're notifying 4 people. I mean, it's not a whole lot of people to send a certificate mail to. I mean, certified mail to.
10 or 12.
Yeah,
That's
so yeah.
That's something that as we go through the process, if we move this forward and the majority feels that we should keep it as certified mail.
Justin.
That's, yeah.
So just 2 other things. This is, I mean, I appreciate people's concern about this, but well, I'm forwarding of mail is a whole different issue. I don't think forwarding would be necessarily fixed by sticking with the green card, but this is also just one of 3 ways, at least, that abutters are notified of activity in their neighborhood. With the first being signage. We require signage being posted on the subject property per regulations for public hearings, and then it's also, of course, in the newspaper as well as on the website. So you know, there are at least 4 different methods in which people are, you know, able to be informed, and you know, some combination of them, and you know, to say nothing of neighborhood scuttlebutt and social media. It is fairly rare that people have absolutely no idea what's being proposed, you know, within a couple 100 feet of them.
I agree.
I'm just thinking of the last public hearing we had when we were talking about various zoning regulation changes, and some people were furious because they didn't know anything about it.
Okay.
We've been discussing it for 12 months
Mhm.
in public here in this venue.
Yeah.
And people were shocked about what we were proposing.
Right. So I'll say
So I'm,
something.
and again, I'm not trying to,
You know,
I'm trying to find the best way to inform people so that we're covered. Okay,
Understand.
and basically one of those meetings, I said, if you didn't know what was going on for the last 12 months, shame on you. Okay, I didn't like to say it, but that was basically the truth.
Well,
If they're not going out of their way to find out what's going on, then shame on them. But again, turning it around, if I'm in Florida in February and somebody proposes to do something, the green card will be sent to my house, it will be sent back because I wasn't there. It may get forwarded, we don't know, but at least I would be notified. If it's, you know, I just think we have to do the best we can to notify people.
I don't disagree with you.
It's their cost, not ours.
Right, and well, okay, but so the real question is the certificate of mailing an acceptable process to notify people? Is it a common process that's commonly used? And the answer is yes.
Okay.
And, you know, we can try to, and I agree with you, I was gonna say, well, I'll say something politically incorrect, like, people at the end of the day need to keep an eye on what's going, and they need to show up, right?
But as you,
But
people need to be fed information personally.
I get that, but as John was very particularly put, we do that in so many ways, like we can put out a town crier, I'll volunteer and stand on the corner and hold a sign, like people that we have a meeting, you know what I mean? But at the end of the day, we just have to do our best.
Yeah.
So,
That's exactly what I'm saying too.
okay. All right, any other conversation around that? Okay, where were we? Section B, under 50.
Excuse me, I'm sorry.
Yes.
We were talking about 71.4.1, which is our certificate of mail, but you want to reduce that to 200 feet instead of 500?
Yes,
Wait, where are you?
Yeah.
71.4.
71.41.
The kind of the original. Yeah,
Yeah, that was the original intent. It was approved but never codified.
Isn't it doing commercial or?
Oh, no, I know that.
Okay.
yeah.
Do you think, I guess my question is, do you think 200 is adequate for residential?
So that's the way it is now. It's just that this is a,
Oh,
this is a typo.
okay,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah. So we're kind of just procedurally
Okay.
trying to make sure it's correct.
Okay.
Okay, the next page, this is really the same language. If the application concerns activity on a commercially zoned property that
Yeah.
immediately abuts a residential zone, notice shall be sent to properties within 500 feet. If Rick's comment still applies to that, I'm happy to also entertain putting in commercial use there as well.
Everything is consistent.
Mr. Chair,
Yes,
with your actual mention of Rick, I'll also just note he texted me he was having some internet problems and he just dropped off, so he's actually not currently on the call. Oh, here he comes.
oh, there he
Comes
is.
again. Okay, so
Okay,
he was just momentarily off, but he's back.
okay, perfect. All right, next section was brought forward by a couple people. Jason helped with this. So the agriculture section, obviously last year we made some changes to that, but there were some other items that were brought up as concern by some residents who were engaged in farming activities. So if you go to the next page, it starts at 21.5, there's nothing changed on that page. And then the next one that has a famous matrix for livestock. Section D, the use of trailers or similar temporary structures that house for the housing of animals for periods in excess of 90 days are prohibited. Supplies shall not be stored outside. The section has been proposed to be deleted, and the reason for that is because there's many common agricultural practices that require or utilize what can be considered a trailer to move livestock in an open field. A tractor, a chicken tractor, hog tractor. And the fear with this is that somebody could use this against the farmer and say, well, you can't have a trailer to house animals, even though it's really just moving them around in a temporary fashion. So it's just to lessen the confusion around that. The proposal was to strike that verbiage out. Does anybody have any comments? Okay. Next page, section 6A, first bullet point. The farm shall contain a minimum of 1 acre of land devoted to growing edible crops and agricultural products that is available for sale on the farm. This felt like it was micromanaging, and I don't know how a CEO would necessarily go in and measure, well, you have 3/4 of an acre of land devoted to this, but not 1 acre, and like, it just seemed, again, to be micromanaging a little bit. So the idea was to strike that out. The questions or comments on that?
Excuse me, going back to the bottom of the last page, which says each instead of all.
For what?
Each instead of all.
Oh, yeah, that's at the bottom of the previous page, Justin, number
Oh,
5.
sorry, I missed that one.
Yeah, does this mean that you could have as many buildings as you want, as long as they're less than 2,000 square feet each?
Accessory agricultural buildings or structures on a farm. Staff may approve accessory agriculture buildings and structures on a small farm up to a maximum square footage of each agricultural building and structures of 2,000 square feet. No, I think it would be.
Well, wait, yes, but it needs zoning approval. I mean, this is for, it says right, the following uses require zoning permit, so you have to go to the board. So technically, you could, if you wanted to go to the board with enough applications, yeah, you could certainly have.
Well, it means that they will have.
Yeah, so you could, I mean,
For zoning. This one, they wouldn't need
This
to.
is, yeah, yeah, it's requiring zoning.
it said, following requires the zoning permit.
Yeah, when we use that language, though, it usually just comes to me.
Oh, it does.
Yeah, so, that's my understanding. And I do wanna mention there's still like a lot coverage maximum for each parcel.
Yeah, so essentially, if we look at it, so this, what governs this particular statement is all of the other accessory and structure requirements within the zoning regulation. So this isn't carving out a special exception for agriculture where you can put up a bunch of buildings next to each other. All of that stuff is still regulated separately.
Where's that regulated?
Under structures and.
7.7.
Yeah,
I'm sorry?
7.7 is the standard setbacks and maximum lot coverage.
yeah, maximum lot coverage.
Right. So they still have to,
Those don't.
yeah.
Any other questions? Okay. Yeah, just shout if I missed something. I'm colorblind, so the red, I don't always see, so, the farm shop container, okay, we talked about that, so 21.5.2. Following uses are permitted in the RA zone with commission approval. Proposing adding the language to number 1, farm stand. Farm stand in excess of 200 square feet in area for the sale of agricultural and agriculturally related products or supportive of agritourism activities, provided that. So it's just adding that language, agriculture and agriculturally related products. Under A, farm shall contain a minimum of 3 acres of land, striking out devoted to and growing edible crops or other agricultural products that will be available for sale. Again, not telling somebody what they should have as far as acreage devoted to something, but that they do have to grow crops or other agricultural products. Going down to D, again, adding some more clarifying language, sales shall be limited to agriculture grown or produced substantially from the owner's farm and agriculturally related products. So you could have secondary agricultural related products. And then 3, this is new, classes and workshops and agriculturally related subjects may be permitted on a farm with class hours limited 7 a.m. to 9 p.m. to hopefully for agritourism. Any questions on that page? Okay, almost done. This last page, this was brought up with we have kind of good news, bad news. So we updated multifamily accessory dwelling units last year or the year before, can't remember how long it's been. People are taking advantage of the ADUs, which is great. But Savannah had run into two where the minimum size, total square footage was lower than what they needed. And she and I had a discussion because it's currently at 950 square feet in total floor area is how it's listed in the regulations. Looking back on it, I couldn't remember if our intent was total square footage, which you can't really misinterpret how it's written. It's total square footage, 950, or specific footprint. Is what we were trying to get around, to keep a footprint at 950 square feet. So in experience with applicants and people trying to take advantage of this, we know that some are requiring just a little bit more than 950. So we're proposing adding under 8.3.3, a detached or freestanding accessory dwelling unit shall not exceed 950 square feet in building footprint and shall not exceed 1,200 square foot in total floor area, which will give people a little bit more flexibility. So
We can either do a finished basement or a second floor.
yeah, so you're not tied to 950 square feet in case the building was configured a little differently.
I think that might, put a fly in the face of what basically accelerated dwelling units are. A lot of them are for elderly people. And if you're talking about 2 floors, that's really not, that's not preferable. I'd rather just see the thing increase to 1,200 square feet instead of 950. Just makes it a lot easier to say, if I make it 2 floors, I make it 2 floors.
Yeah, so the footprint
Would be 1,200 square feet, because I think the majority of these things are going to be developed as single floor.
I would agree with you.
Units. And I agree, we had this discussion when this first came about, and there's a lot of back and forth. And I think from trying to lay spaces out to make a unit habitable, 950 is too tight. So I'd rather see just 1,200 square feet.
1,200 square feet in total floor area and
Yeah, building
remove the 950 footprint.
I would just change the 950 to 1,200 and leave it the way it is.
Or you could, if you wanna compromise, do 1,040, which is 26 by 40.
Oh,
I don't give a buffer. I mean, what was the size of
I
man?
built a lot of houses in both roads.
So that's
But, okay. I mean, at the end of the day, if we give people the envelope to work within, it's up to them on what they build. I think we know from experience that the 950 is a little tight, so I would be open to just saying, cross out 950, put 1,200 in there. To me, that's the easier solution.
Yep.
Does anybody have a disagreement with that or concern?
You know, my only concern is now, and maybe we're splitting hairs, it's starting to look like a full-size house. I mean, I built houses on Wellswood Road that were 26 by 40, there's about 4 of them there. And they're full-size, 3-bedroom, 2-bath houses.
Still have to meet the lot coverage and setbacks and all that, so.
We said something at the subcommittee meeting to that effect, and we said, well, we could add language in there to say not.
The percentage,
Because
that's,
I was,
yeah.
Walt was talking about it, he was saying that not to exceed the size, the main dwelling.
Yeah,
But that's a weird.
it is. So I mean, at the end of the day, so like, all right, I get it, like, I totally understand because that probably would be a concern. To me, if someone has the opportunity to do this and it helps their living situation for an elderly family member or a kid, like I'm thinking of my own kids too, like, I don't know how the heck they're gonna afford to get a place. So if we just give them an envelope for 1,200 square feet, I mean,
Doesn't have to be that big.
no, it doesn't have to be that big, it's not like it's gonna be.
What that does allow us is at least a 2-bedroom, possibly a 2-bath unit, because if it's an elderly person, elderly couple, they may have within help. Which would be separate. You do a split plan, so the master bedroom on one side. The assistant is on the other side, self-contained unit, so I think that's where my feeling is with the expanding the footprint. Can give you that possibility.
Any more discussion around that?
I think we should just clarify this 1,200 square feet footprint or floor area that we're going with.
So if we just change it, it would be, well, right now it says floor area, so if the only thing we changed was 950 to 1,200, it would be floor area.
Or, John made that very valid point about if you allowed 1,200 square feet of footprint, you could build up and up.
Well, you still have 35 foot.
Yeah, we still have height requirements.
You
Yeah, but they're gonna assume full stories. The second story,
Because
for
the
sure.
second story and the height requirements and still meet.
Yeah,
the lot
yeah.
minimum.
If you want, I mean, that's,
At the end of the day, it's, yeah. It's up to the.
Yeah,
well,
just
up
put
to
it
the owner.
out there.
you make a small footprint.
So are we good with crossing out 950 and just putting 1,200?
1,200 floor area.
Yeah, that's what it says now.
What Alan says now, which would be floor areas.
So why don't we change it to 1,200 square foot in building footprint and remove the shall not exceed? So it'll look like the maximum size should be 1,200.
I don't think that that's what that would say, Dave. I think the more expansive we make this able to be, the more it's going to be used, and that we're just trying to relieve the pressure on the housing stock. So I'd be in favor of a 1,200 square foot footprint. They want to build a 2,400 square foot colonial, more power to them.
Well, think about your neighbors. If you're, and again, I'll pick on Heritage Drive. Those houses, all of a sudden you have a 2,400 square foot extra building next door to you. That is, is that really what we want?
So let's simplify this even more. So right now, we have this in the system. This is something that people are taking advantage of and we're responding to a problem, right? So 950 total floor area, because that's how it's written now, is too small. So if we were just to change the language from 950 to 1,200, that would be total floor area, that wouldn't be footprint. To me, that kind of splits the concern,
Sure, I go with that.
right? And we know that that's the demand.
But I think to go to 2,400 is.
Yeah, and
Well, who said that?
No, you did
Rick?
footprint, then you did 12.
12.
Yeah, 12, but if you say floor
Floor
area.
area.
and you're limited-
Yeah, the key term is floor area.
600, you can do it.
So let's just change 950 to 1200, keep the rest of the languages the same.
And put total floor area.
Yeah,
Floor area.
yes,
Okay, go.
yeah, and that way, if we come back in a year and there's more concerns about something, we can always address, and we can be responsive to everyone, but.
But at least this addresses the concerns we've had recently.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Any other questions on that stuff? Okay, I'll tell you where I would like to head with this. I would like to move these to public hearing. Because obviously, we'll get a lot of input from us, from the subcommittee that have gone through the different processes that we have to go through. The public being involved and giving feedback will be ultimately what's important. So would anyone object to moving these to the public hearing?
Just one more question.
Yeah.
Again, in the public hearing, do you do red mark changes, or are you just gonna do the whole new thing? When you present it to someone?
Well, we know that the only suggestions that you talked about incorporating.
Well, the things that we talked about now.
Right.
That are red. In
Yeah.
other words, you'll hand out the same thing with the changes we've made tonight.
Yes,
Okay, so that the red, we can focus on what the red is. in
What the
public
changes
hearing.
are.
correct.
And not anything else that's in black, which someone may have an objection to, that's not on the agenda.
No, that's not on the agenda. Everything else is as written. If we want to change anything within the regulations, we can go through the process, but the focus will be on new language, change language.
Okay, what you may want to do on the table, where it says 25 feet, in parentheses, put 50 in black.
Crossed out.
Crossed out or whatever, so that you automatically know what we're talking about. Because you'll say it, but 5 minutes later, people will forget. So this is in black and white.
Yeah, I made a note on mine. As far as formatting, just to make it clear, I'm sure that we can do a few things to,
It just makes the meeting go a lot easier.
yeah.
One other item is when we do pass this out, since Justin noted it, I'll note 4% of the population is colorblind. If we can put those little bars on the side to indicate lines that have been changed as well, I think that's just a checkbox in Word.
Yeah,
That
Or-
was appear.
yeah, that wouldn't hurt. So we can work on formatting the presentation. So. All right, are there any other concerns, questions? Okay, so. Mary Kay, you said we could possibly do the 27th, or doesn't matter. Okay, I'm gonna make a motion to move the to establish public hearing for Monday, April 27th for the following sections that we reviewed during this meeting: 7.1 setbacks, 7.7 height, area, and yard requirements, 9.0 structure definition, 71 Board of Appeals notifications, 52 special permit applications, 21.5 agriculture, and 8.3 accessory dwelling units and 2 family dwellings. And then the elimination of the section 8.14 accessory structures and in residential districts. With, just to note it, with the following suggestions. Under 52.2, section E, add language about commercially zoned and under commercial use properties, so we'll add the commercial use language. Also in the next page, under section D, add commercial use along with commercially zoned. And then strike out 950 square feet and simply add in 1,200 square feet under 8.3.3. Now that's a long motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, all those in favor? Opposed? Abstentions? All right, thank you, everybody. All right, let's move on to the bylaws. So we should have one in your packet. It says Justin's updated version. John and I went through these, and then I added a couple last minute things here. So let's just go through this quickly. We have two options at the end of this. If everyone looks at this and says, no, non-controversial, no problem, and we vote on it in favor of it unanimously, we can do that tonight. If anyone has concerns, we really would need to wait another meeting for everybody to digest it, and then next meeting we can vote on it, and would have to be 2/3 majority at that time. So if we just go through this, the first page, there was nothing proposed, change. Second page, we had talked about some changes to this, but that was eliminated. Page 3, Article 7, Section 1. Regular meetings will ordinarily be held on the second and fourth Monday of each month at 7 p.m. in the Columbia Town Hall, blah, 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 or at a time and location as agreed upon by the majority of the commission. Striking out, it is the intent that the first meeting of the month will be dedicated to zoning permits and public hearings, and that the second meeting of the month will be principally dedicated to subcommittees and discussing potential changes in zoning and subdivision regulations. It's just very specific language that seems unnecessary. Any questions on page 3?
Yeah, I have a question about so regular meeting schedules established for the entire year, for the end of the previous year. Is this suggesting that the majority of the currently seated commission could change that regular meeting schedule during the actual year itself?
Or the time and location is agreed upon by the majority of the commission, yes, it gives flexibility to that.
I don't think that's legal.
In what way?
I've been told that when scheduling commission meetings, you put your schedule out for the year at the end of the previous year, and that's set in stone. You can cancel a meeting, or you could hold a special meeting with very specific topics covered at that special meeting, but you can't simply reschedule a regular meeting.
That is not entirely correct. The commission is asked to schedule their regular meetings, as you say, at the end of the prior year, or basically before January 30th of the current year. And that becomes your regular meeting schedule. However, you can change your regular meeting schedule with at least a month's notice to the town clerk, who can then forward it to the Secretary of State. So you can, like, if all of a sudden, whatever, 2 of your members have a work change and all of a sudden you can't get a quorum, you can change your regular meeting schedule again with a month's notice. And then what this would allow is you're not locked in to second and fourth if a majority of the board at the time of establishment of regular meeting schedule chooses a different day.
Good enough. Thank you, Tom.
Any other questions on that? All right, page 4, section 3. So we just clarified some language here. The notice of a regular meeting shall specify the purpose of such a meeting, and no other business may be considered except by 2/3 majority vote. So just adding 2/3 majority. The paragraph below, the notice of a special meeting shall specify the purpose of such a meeting, and no other business may be considered. The secretary or staff shall notify all members of the commission, taking out in writing and adding via email or other form of direct notice, not less than 24 hours in advance of such a meeting, and then striking out a member may waive such written notice in favor of notification of such meeting by telephone or email. So it just makes the language more updated and consistent. Any questions on that? Okay, page 5. Board. Oh, sorry. All commission meetings shall be open to the public. Executive sessions may be held upon an affirmative majority vote of 2/3. So just adding majority vote of 2/3, clarifying language. Sorry, even with underline, I still didn't see it. That's why I can highlight everything. Okay, Article 8, Order of Business, Section 1. Striking out, unless otherwise determined by the chairman, the order of business at regular meetings shall be, and then it enumerated a specific A, B, C, D, F, G, H, I, J, K, list of this business that we have to follow. So instead, we're proposing the chairman shall, with the assistance of staff, establish the agenda for each meeting. Agendas may include, but are not limited to, the following items, and then we kept the items there instead of just removing them completely, which was in the first draft. Section 2, a motion from the floor must be made and passed in order to take action on any items on the agenda. This one is more in line with Robert's rules. A majority vote of those present and voting is required to change the order of business. That's simply just to change the order of business for any meeting. Any questions on that?
Section 1, I don't see like change to the agenda on there, I don't know.
Yeah, what you read was not what we have.
What
I have.
Well, after that, we choose,
Oh, consideration action.
I just don't see. Like what we used to make.
Addition, okay, we can list that if everyone's comfortable, so. Okay, good catch, this is not showing additions and changes to the minutes,
Yeah.
to the, I'm sorry, to the agenda. Who's agenda. We can add that as an option as well on that list. Is everyone okay with that? With that. Next page, 6. Article 10, section 2, the secretary or adding the commission clerk shall read the legal advertisement and note the dates and crossing out newspapers, adding media in which the advertisement appeared. So giving a little bit more of a open-ended, instead of just newspapers, media, if things change, as things change in the future. And then allowing the commission clerk to read the legal advertisement instead of just the secretary. Section 4, striking out a bunch of language there. The chairman, just read the original language. The chairman shall first call for statements from the opponents, with the applicant being given the first opportunity to speak. The opponents shall be given equal opportunity to comment. The order is reversible at the discretion of the commission prevailing. Whichever the case may be, each group shall make its presentation in succession without allowing any intermixture of comments, pro or con. The applicant shall have an opportunity to respond to questions and comments. Persons who are neither proponents nor opponents shall be given an opportunity to comment. I don't know how that we would manage that properly. So the idea is to strike that out after the chairman shall, strike all of that out, and then add conduct the public hearing in accordance with applicable state statutes and guidance of Robert's Rules of Order.
I think that thing you're striking out was taken from Robert's Rules of Order.
Probably, but now we can just refer to Robert's Rules of Order. Okay. Duplication of efforts. Page 7, no changes. Page 8, the effective date if we change this, that's all. And again, 2 options for this. The bylaws may be amended by a 2/3 vote of the entire voting membership of the commission only after the proposed change has been read and discussed at a previous regular meeting, except that the bylaws may be changed at a meeting by the unanimous vote of the entire voting membership of the commission. If there's no objections to any of this and it's unanimous, I'd be happy to see it changed tonight. If we need an extra meeting to do that, that's fine too. Are there any objections? Or is that just okay?
No.
That's just the
Slides over.
Okay, no objections? Okay, so I will make a motion to accept the Columbia Planning and Zoning Commission bylaws as presented during this commission meeting with the corresponding red lines and deletions. Dave seconds. Is there any discussion on the motion? All those in favor? Any opposed? All right, unanimous. We accomplished something. Thanks, guys. Okay, next up, order of business regulation revisions. So we went through the bulk of that today. We will have another, we have another meeting scheduled for April 21st at 1 p.m. Because we've moved this stuff to public hearing. We'll make a decision on what we need to do there, but anything that's come out of the commission, the subcommittee, we've already talked about tonight. John, Mary Kay, Savannah, communications and reports, anything that we need to know about?
Nothing from me.
No? Okay, no. Okay. Can I jump in discussion? Is there anything that anyone would like to bring up? Yes.
I'd like to congratulate or thank, let's put it that way, the regulations revision subcommittee. I think it was a long haul, but I think everything that happened was good. Good, healthy discussion by everybody. So I think what we can bring out to the public is a good product.
I appreciate it.
Hopefully we'll agree.
Yeah, so you never know what'll happen. You think something will be uncontroversial and then they are, but,
Yeah.
but I wanna echo that. I mean, everyone who's contributed to that subcommittee has done a great job. They all bring a different perspective. That's really, really important. It's not about one person or two people or three people, it's about a group, so I really appreciate it. Just real quick, I had the opportunity to go around on some zoning enforcement, actions and visits with Savannah about a month ago, probably.
Zoning enforcement or building?
Zoning enforcement. So it was a good experience. Savannah's job is not easy. And I think that, you know, we always say and make sure that we appreciate all of our staff. Savannah going through that and visiting those properties, it gives you a very holistic view on how the ecosystem works, where there's always two sides to the story. So I would encourage everyone, all of us, we participate in writing these regulations, we pass them, we discuss them. Very rarely do we have to be the face enforcing them. So I think that that it's worth the time to spend with Savannah on that, and I plan on doing it more, so I appreciate it. Anything else for commission open discussion? All right, audience of citizens, anybody have anything to say?
Ron Kincaid, 8 Basket Shop Road. I'm just gonna be very brief. I appreciate, on a personal level, the, discussion about the, expanding the 80 square footage. I know that I'm usually speaking for code. I can't speak for code tonight because we have 2 meetings this week at which we'll talk about this. But I'd say personally, I think that it's a really great move and it will really help people out. So, thank you.
Thanks, Ronald. Anybody else have any comments? Okay. There's no executive session. I just need a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Bob, second. Jason, all in favor? All right, thanks, everyone. Have a great night. Appreciate it.
Is this not,
No, we're gonna.